There are some other cell placement tools that we need to look at, and all of them are on the Cells toolbox. The first one is Place Active Cell Matrix, which is this tool. And if we start the tool, you'll see that we have an active cell already selected, in this case Deciduous, and it's selected for placement. And in the tool settings window, we see settings very similar to the array tool, where we are selecting number of rows and columns, and the row spacing and the column spacing. Watch the prompts in the status line, which simply says, enter lower left corner of the matrix. So I just data point, and my 4 arrayed cells are displayed. So very straightforward, not many options obviously, but quite useful sometimes. The next tool is very simple, which is the Select and Place Cell tool, and it's essentially a copy tool. So if I select this cell and drag it over, I can place a copy of that cell. That's all it does, but quite convenient at times. You can, of course, change the X and Y scales and the active angle in the tool settings window when you're placing that second instance of the selected cell. Next tool is Cell Origin. Now we'll be using this when we create and define cells a little later. Essentially what it does is locate the cell's origin, which is a point at which it hangs from the cursor when placing a cell. Next tool is Identify Cell, and if we select a cell, then the information about the cell is displayed in the status line in the middle. Tells us that it's a shared cell, the cell name is Deciduous, and the level is T-block. Now the level is T-block, of course, because I'm working in a file which I saved as from the previous video exercises. A little lax of me perhaps, but for demonstration purposes here it works just fine. The next tool is Place Active Line Terminator, and I'm going to get rid of these previous cells. I'm going to draw a line and go to the arrow cell, make that the terminator, so terminator should say arrow. Then we select the tool and simply data point on the end of the line. Left click in the drawing and we have the terminator placed on the end of the line. We can do it on both ends if we need to. There. Now that's all very well, but you'd probably like to use something like this as a dimension. Well, arrow cells can be used as custom arrowheads in the dimension tools. Just make the setting in the Terminator Symbols section of the Dimension Settings box, where you will identify the cell you want to use. Then automatically, as you place dimensions, that cell will be the terminator. The next tool on the list is Replace Cells, and the single purpose of this tool is to replace existing cells with a new definition. Now, we've not got to that point yet, so we can't use this tool, but we will be using it later on when we start to create cells for ourselves. And the last remaining tool is this, Place Cell Index. And again, we can't use this because we don't have cells in this design yet. But the tool creates a cell index that displays in a grid all models in the active design file that are marked can be placed as a cell. So in other words, when you first open a new model, if you tick can be placed as a cell at the bottom of the model creation dialog box, then any model that's listed as such with cells will be listed in this index. And once created, the index is stored in the active model, and each cell is attached as a reference and is listed in the References dialog box. The size of the index is based on the active font height and is adjustable in the Tool Settings window. Simply data point where the index grid is to be located. The index needs to be recreated if new models are created or existing ones deleted. That is if you want to keep the index current. Essentially, the index is a convenient method of displaying all models in a design file. The cell tool is used because models can also be placed as cells. I'll repeat that. Models can also be used as cells and placed in other models or designs. Again, we'll discuss this further. Since the models in the index are references, you can use reference tools on them. Note that the scale of the elements in the references will not be full size, but you can scale them back to 1:1 through the cell properties. Now again, we'll take a look at this cell index in a later video. In the meantime, practice the tools that we've just discussed, at least the ones that we can use at the moment without extensive numbers of cells in various models.